Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Jimbo's Garage. Wow, today I have got a pile of aluminum on my welding table here. I have got a project ahead of me. This is a very complicated aluminum handrail. The top rail is radiused about 15 feet, and I'm using a 2x4 by 250 wall rectangular tube aluminum for that, bent the hard way. Now that's bent on the 4-inch way, not the 2-inch way. More about that later. And then an adjoining stair rail. Very complicated job. It'll be a fun little project and a lot of aluminum welding. Let's get started on today's project. Today's video is sponsored by King Metals. They've got all your fabrication needs in one location. From hinges to hardware, balusters to metal decor, brass to aluminum, and a whole lot more. You name it, they've got it. Check them out today at kingmetals.com. Now let's get back to today's video. All right, well, there is a pile of aluminum right there, and we can be busy cutting. The first thing I want to do is I want to change out my Champion mild steel cutting blade to an aluminum cutting blade. Since I'm going to be cutting a lot of aluminum right here, aluminum blade's a much better way to go. If I stay with the mild steel one, it gums up really quick, loads up, and after a few cuts, it doesn't cut very good at all. These aluminum blades cut really well. The teeth design's a little bit different, and it just doesn't allow the aluminum to load up on the blade. Operating off the Evolution 15-inch cutoff saw. This is what I have in my shop. It works the best for me, for the situation that I have. You can see those cuts are pretty much effortless right there, and you can see the blade is not loading up. And cutting up some flat stock right here as well. These are going to be the end caps I'll be welding on. All right, got everything over to the welding table here, getting ready to do some stuff. And here are the flat pieces and the caps. And this is the first thing I'm gonna do is weld the end caps on. And let me explain what I'm doing here, and maybe you can see if you can make sense of this. So I've got a retaining wall about 4 feet tall, and on the top surface of the retaining wall is some paved stone. It's a raised area, and it's a planter area, and that area is paved in stone. And the stone cantilevers over the top of the radiused retaining wall by about 1 inch. So what I have here is I've got some 1.5 by 2 inch rectangular tube, and I'm going to be welding this onto the 2-inch square tube risers for the radius handrail, and that's going to extend that out 1.5 inches as this extension part is going to be bolted to the retaining wall. So if you can kind of follow that, if that makes any sense to you, so you can understand more of what this is all about here. So basically this piece you'll see gets welded to the 2-inch, and that's going to be bolted to the wall vertically, and then that's going to be able to extend those columns out, those 2-inch square tube columns out past the cantilevered stone. All right. With all that said, I hope you are following along with me on that. All right, I got everything welded up here, and then I'm just grinding everything smooth. The idea here for me is to have this whole thing look like it's just one solid piece. I don't want to see any welds anywhere. I just want it to be clean, and that's the idea here. So you can see this is the piece that's going to get welded onto the 2-inch, and then that is going to be through bolted right about where those clamps are into the retaining wall, and that's going to be able to extend that those posts out past the stone. All right, just getting everything tacked in place right here. I am going to be operating off a couple of different machines right here. Currently, this is the HTP TIG 301. I've got it hooked up to the water cooler right here. And this is working good. There's going to be a lot of welds going on right here. And this is the way I choose to do it. Later, I'm going to be switching to 221. That is got helium to it. I was having a little bit of a time because this material is 1/4 of an inch thick. Not this stuff, but the radius rail, and you'll see that a little bit later on. I'll talk more about that. But for now, we're just going along here, and we're just putting the caps on. And then once I get the caps welded on, then you can see I'm going to go ahead and weld the seam both sides all the way through. Doing a little bit of adjustment here to the amps. So I'm running about probably 170 amps right here operating off the pedal. This is a number 6 cup with a 3/32 of an inch lanthanated tungsten and 3/32 of an inch filler rod. And I believe this is 5356. And just cruising along right here, just filling everything in. And like I said, the idea here is to ultimately, I'm gonna grind all these welds down, and the idea is to ultimately, get everything smooth. Now here's something I don't even understand. After watching the video, I don't even understand why I'm doing this. You can see I clamped all that vertically just for this one weld right here. Why I did that, I don't know, when I could have easily just laid the thing down and got that weld when it was on flat on the table. I just don't know what the purpose of that. Sometimes, you get carried away and you're working along, you don't really understand. I still don't get why I did that, but hey, nevertheless, it got done. All right, I'm still got the Architect helmet there. This is really a cool helmet. I mentioned in the last video, and super lightweight. Headgear is super good on this. Really big adjustment. Very easy to adjust. It's got a good viewing window. Just all in all, great helmet. There's no charging, no on-off button, no batteries to deal with. It does have a what they call a 10-year battery. Hey, if you have this hood for 10 years, more power to you. Hey, just like my 3M that I normally use, it's got an on-off button. You got to turn the thing on every time you want to use it. But hey, this is a pretty nice little setup. Now, I never did mention the last video, but I'll put a link in the description on this one here where these things are available. I think you can order them online. There's a couple of different places, and I believe the price point is going to be somewhere around $270 or $280, which is a pretty fair deal. All right, yeah, there I am, back up on that clamp for whatever reason. A lot of work for seemingly nothing. All right, grinding all this thing smooth. That is beeswax. Beeswax is a must-have on your flap disc for grinding aluminum. It just prevents the aluminum from loading up on the flap disc. If you guys have tried a flap disc on aluminum grinding, you'll see that it works good for about 10 seconds, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work very well. This beeswax allows it to work, cut this aluminum really smooth, really easy, and as long as you keep it on there, it works really well. All right, so this thing is going to be sandblasted, primed, and powder coated. This is a non-woven pad here on a grinder. I'm just taking some of the scratches out. I'm just kind of buffing it up a little bit. And there they are right there, complete. And like I said, the idea is a solid looking bar. And that's what I got right there. And you can see the radius right there, that long piece. Got all the dimensions. Everything is right where it needs to be, all marked up. I'm just using some acetone to kind of clean all those marks off. I got everything clamped where it needs to be. And this is why I switched back over to the Fabricating 221. I've got that machine is hooked up with some helium, 50% argon, 50% helium. And if you've never used that with thick aluminum, it works really well. It heats that stuff up. There's really no waiting time. When I say no waiting time for it to preheat, I'm talking just a few seconds, and you're ready to go on 1/4 inch material. If you're just using argon, you might have to sit there for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 seconds before it preheats enough where you can start welding. But with the helium, it's quick. All right, so they're all clamped vertically here, and you can see I'm welding them all the way around. And it's critical that these things are nice and plumb in both directions. That's the idea, is to keep them that way. And as you know, you start welding like this, it has a tendency to draw it over towards the area you're welding. So I got the 3 sides all the way around, and then this side right here, and it stayed pretty true. Using every bit of that rod. You know, sometimes on something like this here, and you'll see I get out of position a little bit. And when I get out of position, it's difficult for me to weld. You know, I like to be in a comfortable position, something that I can easily manage. But, you know, sometimes you can't always get like that, especially a piece like this. Look how big this thing is. I mean, I think it ultimately was 12 feet long. They ended up cutting it down a little bit, but the piece I had to work with is about 12 feet long. And I'm just going along here. Those welds don't look too bad. You know, I haven't done this in a long time. Here's another out of position weld right here. I'm reaching around the back of this thing. And, you know, it's just, for me, it's difficult. I'd rather have it right in front of me, but you can't always have that. All right, there it is. That big piece. All those pieces are welded on. That's what some of the welds look like. Not too bad for a guy that doesn't do it all the time. All right, Champion here, aluminum cutoff wheel. I tried to give it a whack right here with this thing. They work really good with aluminum, but ultimately this thick stuff, and you can see it cuts pretty good, but it was just taking a long time, and now I'm having a hard time getting all the way through this. I just switched over to my metal cutoff saw, and I was able to just cut right through it. Much better way to go. I'm just capping the end right here. See, my cut wasn't perfectly straight, but that's no worries. We're going to fill this up all the way along, all the way around, and then I'm just going to grind everything clean. Again, capping off the end just to give it that look, that finished look. Vertical uphill. Wow, what a challenge for me. If you don't do this all the time, sometimes things just get difficult. Well, I got lucky there. It worked out pretty good. All right, weld it all the way around, and then just clean it up with the grinder, and then this is the finished product, you know. So there it is. Looks finished off right there. And especially after, like I said, it gets sandblasted, primed, and then powder coated, it's going to look like it's a solid piece. All right, here I have flipped it up. Now it's off my welding table, and again, out of position, standing up, vertical up. You know, nothing that'll rest my arm on or rest anything on. It just gets a little bit difficult. And of course, it's at night. I'm trying to bust this project out, so there's a lot of long hours on this trying to get this thing done. All right, there it is the next day, all completed and done. And I'll set that one aside, and what I've got left here is the smaller handrail that's going to be going down the stone stairs. And this is basically the same principle. I've got some stairs with some stone that's cantilevering over the edge about an inch. I'm using, these are the posts. These are 1.5 inch posts. And I'm going to be using some 1.5 inch square tube, I believe, on the bottom here. Same principle as the radiused handrail. You know, welding these things on to project those posts out past the stone. And that's the idea here. All right, got a file just deburring these things a little bit, cleaning them up a little bit. Gonna be TIG welding this, so it's always nice to use a file to clean things off. Rather than a flap disc, it could get some contamination on there. All right, this is the template that was provided for me here, and what I'm doing here is I've clamped the rail to my welding table, and then I am transferring this over from the template to the rail, and then I'm going to get rid of that template for now. And then I'm going to come along here, and I'm going to mark this with the Sharpies on my welding table, the exact angle it needs to be. That piece of cardboard template, I'm done with that now. I don't need that anymore. So the idea is to just get everything marked on the welding table. This piece of 2-inch square tube is just a straight edge. It's about 6 feet long. I didn't have enough with a 4-foot straight edge right there, so that's all I'm using this thing for. And now that I've marked all that onto the table and I know exactly where the rail needs to be, you can see those marked right there. Now it's time to go ahead and grab these these posts and get these standoff plates or extensions or whatever you want to call them welded on. Same process as before, you know, welding an end cap on here all the way around and then welding them to the post. You can see that even though this is 1/8 inch thick material, I'm still with the 221 with the helium. I'm telling you, once you start welding with this and you weld a lot of aluminum, man, I'm telling you, it's hard to go back because everything's so smooth and fluid and fast. It's pretty awesome. And once again, got those done. Now I'm just cleaning these up, getting these ends all polished down and cleaned up. And there they are. And here we go. 3 of them. Same process as before. Clamp everything down, end plate on the end, hold everything in. Tack some things in place, keep everything nice and straight. I just got a clamp there. It started to pull away a little bit. I just wanted to be sure I clamped it up tight there to get everything snuggled up tight. Once I get everything tacked in here, all right, we're good to go. It's not going to go anywhere. All right, I'm just going to finish this out right here, all 3 of these, and we're going to get them all done, and then I'll start to get those welded onto the rail. All right, so I'm back to the water-cooled machine. You know, the air-cooled machine with a combination with the helium, welding these long welds like this, man, that torch was getting smoking hot. So I had to go back to the water-cooled torch right here, and everything's still, you know, this is only 1/8 inch thick material, so this is welding up really nice. All right, a little beeswax on the flap disc right there, and just smooth off everything once again. Be sure everything is nice and smooth. Giving that illusion that it is one solid piece. I just didn't want to see any welds. I just wanted just a nice clean look. And buff it up a little Scotch-Brite type of discs there. It just kind of takes out some of the sand marks, kind of softens up some of the sharpness there. All right, it's time for assembly, and you can see I got my table dogs on there, and I'm going to clamp everything down flat so I know I've got a nice flat, smooth surface to go to, and then the marks on my table, and I'm just going to line these things up right where they need to be. Just get them spaced off. You can see I got the little wood spacers underneath there. Get everything clamped down. So the idea here is to weld as much as I can the way they're sitting right here, which means this part right here, and then I'm probably going to go vertical up on the inside there to just get as much as I can welded, so nothing moves around when I go to tip it out by the edge. And this is why I have a little bit of trouble, because again, for me, I'm out of position. There it is. I just dipped the tungsten right there. Now I'm trying to salvage that, and you just never can do that. I don't, you know, it just once you contaminate the tungsten like that, it's just a hard recovery. And for me, this is out of position. It seems like I'm upside down, and I don't have nothing to rest on, and it's just hard for me to get that. All right, one more here. If I can get through this one right here, then I can unclamp everything and get this rail up on end. It'll be a little bit easier to weld. Not too bad. All right, I think that's right down to the last weld right there. And that ought to do it. A couple more shots right here. you know, when you got it, you got something to prop on, you got it in front of you, you know, things go a little bit better. Yep, a little bit of mess at the very end, the very last weld. It's always like that. All right, well, there it is, installed. That's the color they went with. It looks really nice hanging over the ocean right there. Really clean job. Turned out really good. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.